Continuing the trend of trace rifles actually being pretty decent now, I wanted to take a look at Ager's Scepter and make a whole stasis build around it. This build honestly turned out very strong, and even though the artifact is not really featuring anything to do with stasis this season, it is still strong enough to compete with some of the best builds in the game, and I would argue that it is the best crowd control build in the game. So if you want to freeze an entire battlefield while also having an ice beam of death, this is 100% a build you want to try out. Alright, getting right into it, I think we first need to talk about why trace rifles actually are pretty good right now, and that is because it's going to have two brand new artifact perks based around them with Beam Medic and Harsh Refraction. Beam Medic says rapid trace rifle final blows heal you and nearby allies, powerful combatants increase the amount, and then Harsh Refraction says trace rifles do more damage to targets afflicted by elemental debuffs matching their elemental type. Harsh Refraction is definitely giving you the most benefit out of these two, but don't sleep on Beam Medic. It can heal you from time to time, it is nice. But if we take a look at our trace rifle we're going to be using, that is the Ager's Scepter. So if you don't know the way this works, essentially when you get a kill, you're going to create this slowing field around an enemy, which will very quickly lead to a freeze. And since slow and freeze count as elemental debuffs, that means Ager's Scepter is going to be doing more damage to those frozen targets because Ager's Scepter obviously is stasis damage. The sheer amount of ad clear you can get from just this weapon alone is absolutely disgusting. You can basically just get one kill, freeze a whole group of ads, and then you're going to be doing 35% more damage to them permanently. I say permanently because there really isn't a time in this build where something isn't slowed or frozen, but just remember, if there are some things on the battlefield that aren't, be sure to try to prioritize the targets that are so you can get your Harsh Refraction procced. Now, the really fun part about Ager's Scepter is going to be its exotic catalyst. And as you see here, it's a lot of text, so I'll break it down for you. So essentially, this is going to allow you to use your super to basically buff the gun up a lot. If you do have max super energy, you can hold your reload button for Ager's, and then it's going to give you an empower beam that does more damage alongside applying slow and freeze. Obviously, that is going to pair extremely well with Harsh Refraction. Not only are you just getting the increased damage of the beam itself, but now since that slow and freeze is being applied, Harsh Refraction is proccing, and you also will just have the passive shatter damage that freezing the target over and over again will provide. When you activate the exotic catalyst with this setup, it will absolutely just delete anything you pointed at. Sometimes it feels like it's not worth using the catalyst part on this weapon because it uses your super, but I can assure you with Harsh Refraction, it will actually make you want to use the catalyst part of this exotic. Now, with all that being said, let's take a look at our stasis exotic armor, and that is going to be the rime-coat raiment. So if you don't know the way this works, you can throw your Bleak Watcher turret. It's going to make 4 stasis crystals around the turret, and the turret is going to have more range. I think we all know how strong Bleak Watcher is in general, but it is worth noting that those crystals that spawn are going to play heavy into our subclass. They can also do a ton of damage for ad clear, but the really cool part about this exotic is that if you stand in the little storm field that it provides under the turret, you will build up these slow shards that you can shoot out, and since you are applying slow from this exotic itself, that means you are also proccing Harsh Refraction without even having to use the exotic catalyst perk on Ager's, and it kind of works as a mini catalyst. So you can basically just throw a turret down, stand in it, you and your turret are going to constantly slow and freeze things, your Harsh Refraction is going to be constantly procced all the time, and again, you also are still just getting the normal benefits of Bleak Watcher being very strong, plus those additional crystals. rime-coat raiment is seriously one of the best crowd control exotics in the game. You don't even have to have anything stasis related with a specific season, and it still is very strong. But being that it now plays into things like Harsh Refraction because of Ager's Scepter, it just makes it that much better. But now let's talk about the subclass, because this is actually going to play pretty massively with our weapon and our chest piece. So obviously we do need to run Bleak Watcher to take advantage of rime-coat raiment. But I want to point out that Winter's Wrath super, I think we all know it's not the best super in the game, but since it is a Roman super, you're going to get it back very quickly, and that means you could just use that super to convert into your Ager's Catalyst, just so you can have this thing shred. I should have mentioned this earlier, but you can actually cancel the Catalyst part of Ager's Scepter. So if you end up proccing it, defeating the target that you were trying to kill, you can hold your reload button again to cancel it, and then a lot of your super will be saved. And then once again, since Winter's Wrath is a Roman super, you're going to top it back off extremely quickly to have your supercharged beam up again for whatever target that you need to shoot it at. I'm going to be honest with you all, I literally never use the Winter's Wrath super with the setup. I quite literally always convert it into the exotic catalyst, but if you want to use it, it's there. But again, I think you're going to get a lot more benefit out of it with the catalyst and the artifact perks. But obviously there's a lot more that goes to the subclass, and one of the main ones is actually going to be Glacial Harvest. So now every single time you freeze targets, you're going to make stasis shards. Every time you pick up these stasis shards, it's going to grant you melee energy, it's going to give you a small amount of health, and it will grant you frost armor, which actually got buffed with this episode, and now at 5 stacks you're going to be getting 36% damage reduction. With the amount of stasis shards you're going to have on the battlefield, you're pretty much going to be at max all the time. So with that 36% damage reduction, the small amount of health you get back every time you pick it up, and the fact that just everything is going to be frozen on the battlefield, it makes it very hard for you to die. And then the extra little melee energy you get is nice because you do have Penumbral Blast to freeze targets. So between Penumbral Blast, your grenade with Bleak Watcher, rime-coat Raiment, your Ager Scepter, you're going to be freezing everything. And to buff that, we actually are going to be taking Whisper of Fissures. So every time we defeat a frozen target or a stasis crystal, it does more damage and has a bigger radius. We're also going to be playing into Whisper of Shards. So whenever we shatter a stasis crystal, we will get increased grenade cooldown rate. This is great because since rime-coat Raiment does make the stasis crystals, we can easily proc this to just get our grenade back extremely quick. And speaking of grenade energy, we're going to be taking Whisper of Torment, so whenever we take damage, it's going to grant us grenade energy, and if we have frost armor, which we will have at Glacier Harvest, it will grant us even more. Yes, everything is going to be frozen a lot on the battlefield, but obviously from time to time you will get shot, so it's just a great benefit. Pairing this with the Whisper of Shards cooldown that you do get, you pretty much get your grenade back extremely quick, and you could just always rely on having a Bleak Watcher ready to go. But then the final fragment is just going to be Whisper of Endurance. All the slow that we apply lasts longer, and the abilities that slow also last longer, so that makes our Bleak Watcher just last a little bit longer. And again, with the amount of how much we can spam, we can get a ton out on the battlefield. We're going to have crystals being made all the time because of Bleak Domain. We're going to have a lot of spots to stand in for our Agers just to shoot out slow ice shards. And while we're doing all that in the background, we're building up Winter's Wrath Super so we can use our catalyst on our Agers again just to slow and freeze things. It is very, very good. Now I do want to mention you can run this setup with Prismatic if you would like to. You're going to rely on Devour to get your grenade energy back, again to spam your rime-coat Raiment everywhere, whereas this, you just passively get the grenade energy, so there's no kill reliant or anything. You will just straight up, you shoot the crystal from rime-coat Raiment, you take damage, you're going to get your grenade back extremely quick. And I would almost argue that the Stasis setup is better specifically with this setup, because again, you want to use your Winter's Wrath to use your catalyst on the Trace Rifle, and if you take something like Prismatic, yes, you do have a good super, it just kind of takes away somewhat of the purpose of running Ager Scepter because of the catalyst. But again, it's totally up to you. Both work extremely well. I just prefer Stasis, and I've been having a ton of fun with it. But now jumping into the armor, the stats I like to run is 100 resilience, get 30% damage reduction. This is going to pair very nicely with our frost armor damage reduction. I also like to run 100 discipline, obviously, so I can spam Bleak Watchers a lot more often. And then I opt in just to take 80 recovery, or just put whatever else you have into recovery, just so I can spam my rift a little bit more. This is just good for your survivability. If you want to throw it in melee, you can, but with the amount of stasis shards that you do make with Glacier Harvest, you get your melee back pretty quickly, so I don't really think you need melee, so that's why I opt in just to try to max recovery out if possible. But now these are the armor mods I'm running if you would like to copy them down. But jumping into the first one, I do like to run a Harmonic Siphon, so rapid stasis while final blows makes an orb of power. This is obviously very good for your Ager Scepter. You can make orbs now. I then just run double dynamo just so I can get extra super energy when I do use my rift. Again, kind of why I play into recovery. Nothing else really matters here too much. You're not getting kills with your grenade because the Bleak Watcher isn't really going to kill anything. Hands on, you're not really killing anything with your melee. So again, I opt in just to get extra super energy for a dynamo, and again, that super can be converted into your catalyst. Now for my arms, I do run a bolstering detonation, so I get class ability energy when I deal damage with a grenade, a momentum transfer, so I get melee energy when I deal damage with a grenade, and then an impact induction, so I get grenade cooldown when I do damage with a melee. The thing to point out here is that your Bleak Watcher turret can actually proc both of these mods, so pretty much you're going to always have these procced all the time. They do have an internal cooldown, but since Bleak Watcher is just quite literally on the battlefield all the time, as soon as that cooldown goes away, and it makes it really easy to keep your melee and your class ability up. Again, pairing that with the stasis shards, you can do it pretty quick. But then that is where impact induction comes in, because since you can get your melee a lot, that means you can just throw it and then just get even more grenade energy back, which is nice. But then the reason I don't run like any loader mods here is because Agers can actually just refill its ammo when you get stasis final blows, which is nice. So you pretty much never have to reload the thing to begin with. But then for your chest piece, always go through system mods, just swap these out for whatever content you're going into. And then for our boots, I do like to run a recuperation, so whenever I pick an orb up, I get health. This is nice for your survivability. Innervation, so I get grenade energy on the orb pickup, obviously just to spam more Bleak Watchers. And then I like to run a stasis scavenger, since I mainly only run Agers, or just use Agers with this build. I get a bunch of ammo back. You can double dip into this if you would like to and take a stasis power weapon, which is totally up to you. But even if you just use it for Agers, it's still very good because again, you want to have a lot of ammo for it. And then for the class item, I do like to run a bomber, so whenever I use my class ability, I get grenade energy back. Obviously, this has nice synergy with bolstering detonation, but then also a powerful attraction. So whenever I use my class ability, I can pick up all the orbs around me. Obviously, that has great synergy with our orbs on our boots. And then finally, special finisher. So whenever I finish an enemy, I can make special ammo. Since I'm mainly using a special weapon all the time, this is great to just have just in case I do need to get ammo. And again, with scavenger as well and special finisher, you pretty much will have ammo all the time. You just have to remember to get finishers from time to time. But then for the final part of the build, this is the Transmog I'm running. If you would like to copy it down, I went for a very spiky look because rime-coat just has these spikes on it at the top for some reason. I think it looks pretty cool. I went for a more, I guess, lighter stasis look. As you see, it kind of looks more like water, so we're melted stasis out here. But overall, I think it actually turned out looking pretty cool, and if you want to make your warlock look like this, definitely be sure to copy it down. Anyways though, that's going to do it all for me. Let me know what y'all think about this build in the comments below, and of course, if you have any questions, be sure to drop them down there as well. As always, if y'all enjoyed and learned anything new, consider doing all the normal YouTube stuff. The support really does go a long way, and I truly appreciate it. I think this setup is a ton of fun, and you can 100% take it in things like GMs, and even once this season goes away, it's still going to be very good. I mean, rime-coat raiment builds in general just typically are kind of at the top of the list, at least in my opinion. The only real benefit you're getting from the artifact perk now though is just getting that increased damage from harsh refraction, but that is nothing to be slept on. Basically just doing 35% more damage all the time is obviously very good, but I can only imagine if we had the artifact perks from the last episode in this episode alongside harsh refraction, it would just be absolutely disgusting. But anyway, I wish you all the best of luck in putting this build together for yourself. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great day. Peace.